Hello, wrestling fans again, and welcome to another episode of Talmbout Rasslin right here on the Black Phoenix Network. I am your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. All right, we're going to switch it up a little bit. I mentioned this last week if you tuned in. If not, go watch. But you're here now. Do it later. I'm going to do it right now. So we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do something that I personally like a lot on YouTube. I'm a big fan of What Culture, Cultaholic, and pretty much anywhere else I can find it. I love me a good countdown. Love good countdown. So I figured, hey, why don't I do my own version of a countdown? Something, because again, we're not always going to touch the hot topic of the week. Sometimes we're just going to touch things that I want to talk about because we're just talking about wrestling, okay? We're just talking about wrestling. So why not talk about some of the things that I want to talk about? List some of the things that matter to me. And I have plenty of things. And somehow we're still talking about WWE. I know I said last week that I was going to kind of dial back on that, but here we are again. However, this actually plays into why I would say we would dial back on the WWE stuff. So, without further ado, this week's episode of Talking About Wrestling, we are counting down the 5 most egregious, baffling WWE WrestleMania decisions ever. Now, if you've been watching wrestling as long as I have, there are plenty to choose from. There have been 41 WrestleManias, and Vince McMahon was at the helm of most of them, which means there's a lot of silly shit that was happening. So we're going to crack this list off. Hopefully we won't waste too much time. Let's get into it. We're going to start this list off with a couple of honorable mentions, okay? Couple of matches that, while they weren't top 5, they were baffling in their own right. The decisions were baffling. First, we're going to go with Triple H versus Sting at WrestleMania 31. The Monday Night Wars come to life. There were so many things in this match that were strange, didn't make any sense. The NWO coming to help Sting didn't make any sense. For what it could have been, they made it into a Monday Night Wars thing. After the wars had been long done, long squashed, the invasion happened. There was so much that had already happened. So they turn it into that. And of course, if it's a Monday Night War thing, then the WWE guy has to win. So Triple H goes over. Sting does not get another WrestleMania match. His one WrestleMania appearance, he loses to Triple H, no less. At least if he had lost to like The Undertaker, would have made a little bit of sense. But, hey, what are you going to do, right? Next up, again, Triple H, honorable mention, versus Randy Orton. Now, a couple of things went wrong here. First of all, I was at WrestleMania 25. This is my first WrestleMania that I had ever attended because I said if they ever ran Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, I would be there. So I had to be there. So that build was very violent. And instead of doing the thing that made the most sense, they decided, no, let's do the opposite of the thing that makes the most sense. The fact that the match was like, if you get disqualified, if Triple H got disqualified, he would lose the title. So all the venom that had been built up, then you handcuff it. So the match, it was so mid, and then Triple H wins at the end. Which, what? And then we had to wait a month for Randy Orton to win it in like this 6-pack, this 6-man tag. Man, it was crazy. The match should have been no DQ. Randy Orton should have won. Point blank, period. Now, those are the honorable mentions. Oddly enough, the Triple H is in both of those, but trust me, that is not the last time you will hear Triple H on this list. And if you've been watching wrestling long enough to know, then you know what I mean. All right. So let's get into the list. First off, number 5. We're going to go with Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. WrestleMania 39. Okay. Cody had been built as a star. He was a star. He was over like Rover. The bloodline thing had been running and it ran its course, so it seemed like it was running its course. It was time to get the belts off of Roman because he was still carrying 2 at that time. It was time to get the belts off of Roman. Cody wins the Royal Rumble. He chooses Roman. We are on our way to a new era, the Cody Rhodes era. And somehow, that's not what we did. There were so many people who commented, had ideas. Oh, well, Cody needs a little more adversity. He needs to go through a little bit more so that the title win may. What? Go through more? The 5 years he was gone, or however long, at least 5 years. The 5 years or however long it was that he was gone was the adversity. What are you talking about? Going and starting an entirely new company was the adversity. Coming back at WrestleMania was the adversity. Tearing his pec off the bone and wrestling an entire Hell in a Cell match with a purple titty was the adversity. Okay? What more did we need to do here? Apparently, another year of waiting. And then, the only reason it's number 5 on this list is because they came back and rectified it in a major way at 40. Which kind of was like, okay, well, I guess it was first. But none of that was supposed to happen the way that it happened. Like, they were going to do something completely different. And, you know, that's been well documented, obviously, about The Rock's involvement, the fans' involvement. Triple H doing that thing that he likes to do about, you just have to let it play out. Determined to be smarter than the fans. It was so strange. Why did we do any of that? And if Rock got his way and we had the Roman versus Rock match and not Cody, then when were we going to do that? When were we going to do? When was Cody going to get his big moment? Was he going to go against Seth and win the World Heavyweight Championship? Which that wasn't the title that he made a big deal about the first go around. So none of it made sense. None of it made sense. Put the title on him then. Sure, you don't have the big Avengers Assemble moment that you had at 40. But hey, guess what? Without Stone, I mean, it was cool. Don't get me wrong. It was cool. 40 was cool. WrestleMania 40 was, at the points where it needed to be, everything that it needed to be. But without Stone Cold, who was the obvious person missing in that equation, because I think that would have been dope. Actually, I think 2 things would have been dope. You probably couldn't have done one. But I think having Stone Cold would have been great. Maybe having Hogan. And I know, you know, how we feel about Hogan. But if the idea was that we're cementing Cody as the next big baby face, having the previous big baby faces come out as his, you know, kind of in a passing the torch kind of way would have been dope. We didn't do any of that. Don't know why, but we didn't do any of that, so go figure. So you don't get that big Avengers Assemble moment that you would have got, that we got at 40, I mean. But anything. But it would have been over. We would have just moved on. We would have just been off to the races with Cody. Strange decision. Take a little sip of my Zevia. Moving on. Number 4. Charlotte Flair versus Asuka, WrestleMania 34. For transparency, I was there for WrestleMania 34 as well. So here's the little backstory here going into this. Asuka had been in NXT, killing it. Undefeated in NXT. Women's champion. The only reason she wasn't the champion anymore is because she got injured and vacated the title. Which also was strange because I could swear she wasn't even gone long. But case of Rasslin. So she debuts on main roster, killing it, undefeated. Gets into the Rumble, wins the first ever Women's Royal Rumble on a rocket ship, right? Who's she going up against? Charlotte Flair. All right, and it's up. We're gonna crown Charlotte. We're gonna crown Asuka, and we're gonna keep the party rolling. And again, we didn't do that. Why? What? To this day, I have no. And here's the thing: Asuka has not been the same since. Has not been the same since. I don't. Has Asuka won a WrestleMania match at all since then? I don't think she has. I have to check, but I don't even think she's ever won a match there. So definitely has not recovered from that. Why did Charlotte need it? Who knows? And then Charlotte got cashed in on wasn't that next Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Like right after that, she got Carmella cashed in her Money in the Bank contract and won the belt. So we didn't even, none of it made sense. None of it made sense. Like I said, Asuka has yet to recover. Charlotte needed that for what? It's another one of those decisions. Again, Vince had a way of doing things, man, that will make you scratch your head and pull your hair out at the same time. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. But apparently that's why I'm not the booker. Charlotte probably could be on this list like 2 or 3 more times. But I don't think there were any more egregious than this. We could mention her versus Rhea Ripley at 36, which was the COVID one at the warehouse, I guess at the Performance Center. I like calling it the warehouse because it's big and empty. That was kind of bad, but in a Mania that nobody wants to remember, not that big a deal. Beating Ronda at 37, 8. Beating Ronda at 38. Also, an interesting choice. But whatever. Still not egregious. Had she beat Tiffy, probably would have been still not egregious. But it would have been strange for her to just kind of come back and pick up. See, I mentioned this in a previous video that the reason that I can't get into Charlotte is that every time she goes away and I think, maybe I'll miss her now. She comes back and she goes right back into the main event. Or right back into the title picture. And I just can't be bothered. I just can't be bothered. So this isn't even where it started. This is just where I felt like it was at its most egregious. Like I said, it looks like we're doing something different now. They won the tag titles, which still feels Charlotte-y, but it feels like there's a reason now, and there's something else to it besides just Charlotte being Charlotte. We're getting to see Charlotte the person. So I'm here for that. But this was bullshit. I was there. It was bullshit. There was a lot of bullshit that night. That was a bullshit Mania for a lot of reasons. Number 3. This one, maybe I'm cheating a little bit. Okay? Maybe I'm cheating. But hear me out. We're going to do a 3-way tie for number 3. And the reason it's a 3-way tie for number 3 is because it's the same guy for 3 WrestleManias in a row doing the same thing, one way or another. In number 3, we have John Cena at WrestleMania 29, WrestleMania 30, and WrestleMania 31. Now, you may have forgotten these. It was so long ago. It's 10 years ago. And more. WrestleMania 29, Rock versus John Cena 2, twice in a lifetime. What? And why is it twice in a lifetime? Because 28 was once in a lifetime. It was supposed to be one and done, and somehow we got it again. I don't know why we needed it again, but somehow we got it again. Now, that in and of itself is fairly egregious. But the real problem here is everything that got trampled in the process, including, and this is going to be strange considering some of the things I've said in previous podcasts, the historic title reign of CM Punk. CM Punk at that point was in that long title reign that he had for like over a year. He turned heel, and he had previously just lost the title to The Rock. In itself, a strange decision. But we can get past that, right? No big deal. Well, no, you know what we do? Cena wins the Rumble. Now, anybody could have won the Rumble, but of course it looks like, oh, we're definitely heading towards Cena versus Rock. Like, once Cena won the Rumble, you knew Rock was going to win the title, because why not? So Rock wins the title, Cena wins the Rumble. Punk is out in the cold. Punk gets Undertaker, which is cool, but we know Punk wanted that main event, right? And the way you solve all of this was to just make a triple threat. Cena, Rock, Punk. Make it elimination. I've seen this all the time, and I agree with it. Make it elimination. Punk gets eliminated early. Fine. He wins. You know, he gets in. He gets eliminated. You got your one-on-one. You haven't booked this as a rematch. You haven't put Punk out in the cold. Everybody's happy. But no, that marketing, we got it twice in a lifetime. They didn't call it twice in a lifetime time, but they might as well have. That match, that entire thing derailed really the entire WrestleMania 29 card, if you ask me. Because there's so much stuff you have to shuffle then because of that. A silly decision, if you ask me. And then the next year, not much better. John Cena versus Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt was red hot. The Wyatt family was cool, creepy, disturbing, and he picked John Cena. And here's an opportunity for something to happen that really would have set a completely different trajectory. If John Cena had just put over Bray Wyatt. That's it. Now, eventually he did. I think in the rematch, Bray won, and maybe in the rubber match, Cena won again, and Cena won the feud. And here's another situation, kind of like we talked about Oscar, that never really recovered. Now, the thing with Bray is Bray had a lot of different starts and stops, I guess you could say. So he actually recovered in some ways, and every time he recovered, Vince would clip his knees. That's egregious in and of itself. But I think it all starts right here against John Cena. People, not just me, considered Bray Wyatt the successor to The Undertaker as far as the mystique, as far as the just being the supernatural or being the force that Taker was. They looked at Bray as being the successor to that. And then they kneecapped him. He loses to Cena. He's another one. He has one Mania win. And that Mania win comes at the feet. It was the Firefly, which, oddly enough, it was against John Cena in the Firefly Funhouse match, which wasn't a match. It was like a segment or something. It was a cinematic match. And look, a lot of back and forth on that. I loved it. Hit the mic there. I loved it. Firefly Funhouse, I loved it. Okay? Again, if you listen to the last episode, I love callbacks. I love Easter eggs. There was just full of Easter eggs and callbacks. I loved it. Loved every bit of it. But it took that long. And still, we talk not even a real win. I mean, not like in front of fans, 1, 2, 3 pin, he's the guy. He never got one. He lost at 30 to Cena, lost at 31 to Undertaker, 32 he was hurt and involved in that segment with The Rock and Cena, where they got their ass kicked again. 33 was against Randy Orton when he was WWE champion. Lost in a match where he was projecting shit into the ring, which was weird again. 34, he didn't even have a match. He helped Matt Hardy win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. 35, he wasn't even there. And then he debuted. Well, the Fiend vignette started that next night, if I'm not mistaken. 36, of course, that was the COVID mania, and then he won in the Firefly Funhouse. And 36 was Randy Orton, which he lost again. He never won a Mania. Egregious. Okay. It all goes back to that. Now, moving on. Speaking of WrestleMania 31, John Cena versus Rusev. Again, another up-and-coming superstar who was red hot, who was, on fire. Until he runs into the buzzsaw named John Cena. And again, Rusev never recovered. Now, you can kind of say he did, in the same way that you said that you say Bray Wyatt recovered. Rusev recovered because he went on and did some things, but he was never the same. He never had that momentum the way that he had in that initial run. Rusev Day was hot. He was over with Rusev Day, which they never did anything with. He was hot when he got to AEW, his Miro and doing the Redeemer stuff, but they never really capitalized on that. And right now he's back, and he's still Rusev. There's a moment, and this is what I'm saying about this entry all the way around. There are these moments where Cena becomes the hump, and they won't put anybody over the hump. And then there's this drought of believable heels who can really challenge for anything. And that's why. Because when you have the opportunity, that's what you do. Rusev was hot as fish grease. And if I'm not mistaken, he made Rusev tap out in that match. And I get it. That was the patriotism thing. They were doing the whole kind of flag aspect, Rusev came out on a tank. But it was good old American Marine John Cena and all of that. And of course he had to win. And again, Rusev never was the same. Make it make sense. You can't, because it doesn't. We're getting into the nitty gritty here, man. These next two are infamously egregious and baffling. Infamously. Not just per my, particular taste. Infamous. And you probably already know what those two are because I hadn't named them yet. Number 2. Hulk Hogan hijacks the main event of Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. Listen. It wasn't invented yet, but I would have liked it more if Hulk Hogan had cashed in a Money in the Bank briefcase. Because at least that would have made a little bit of sense. But this doesn't. We get Bret versus Yokozuna. Yoko wins. All right. Hogan comes out for some reason to help out Bret Hart, I guess, because babyface is, babyface is doing babyface things. And Bret's like, oh, the two salt in my eyes. Go get him, get him, get him. Which, what? Okay, all right, whatever. Yoko and Fuji are like, hey, get in this ring, Hulk. We're going with... Okay, it wasn't something like that, but you get the point. So Hulk gets in the ring. Now we have a match. Then this happens. Then this happens. And then this happens. What? Why? What? Huh? How? Hulk hadn't even been around. Hulk had not even been around. He has a black eye because of we say because of the something with the ski. Who knows why? But he has a black eye. Some people say it's because of who knows? We don't know why he has a black eye, but he has a black eye. And now we go off of WrestleMania now with your champion with a black eye. What? 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 And then he didn't even show up, really after that. Until, King of the Ring, where he dropped it back to Yoko again. Who eventually went on dropping it back to Bret Hart. What? None of it. Listen. Now, I watched the documentary, and I think a lot of that... First of all, I think they just wanted Hulk on the show to sell the tickets. They could give a damn less about if he was the champion or not. So why do we need to do this? Why did we need to do that? It doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense then. It doesn't make any sense now. None. Why did we do that? Why did we do that? It's egregious. It was egregious. There's not even much more to say. Because what? Because at least with some of these, there's some kind of rhyme or reason. Or there's some backstory. Or there's something that made sense for it leading up. Or maybe it should have went this way. Or should have done this. This doesn't even have that. He just came out. And then it happened. I don't even know what else to say, man. That's Hogan. I can't even. I don't know if I even blame that one on Hogan. Maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know who that was. But I know it was stupid. That one was stupid and had no anything. And it probably is going to be the shortest entry into this list because what? So we're just going to move on because I can't make it make sense. I cannot make it make sense. So let's just get to number one. Hands down, the most egregious, baffling, disrespectful, offensive wrestling thing to have happened. WrestleMania 19, Booker T versus Triple H. I'm pretty sure much has been made of this match and why it was such an egregious thing to do. But I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say it again. Because why not? The entire build was Booker T earning this shot and Triple H treating him basically the way we get treated. Let's just call it spade a spade. Triple H, the without it being overt, the entire thing was about Triple H being a blazing racist. You people don't deserve to be here. It takes people like me to be a champion. Yada, yada, yada. All right. Controversial. But if you stick the landing, then it's okay. And what's the landing? Well, of course, it's that the black guy overcomes in the end, right? Because then he proves Triple H wrong. Even if you take the race aspect out of this, just the idea of Triple H, if he was talking to a white guy, it still would have been the same thing. If we're going to be perfectly honest about it, just say people like you don't deserve to be champion. Like the complete degradation of somebody because of their past, because of what you're perceived to be. The next thing is for that guy to win. That's usually how it should work out. But if you take the aspect of race that was very overt here, I mean, then you gotta do it, right? Then you gotta, the good guy has to win. Booker T has to win here. Booker T does not win. Now that's bad. But there are ways you could have done that. You could have put, they're having this knockdown, drag out fight, and it come down to almost the end, and, Triple H pulls a rabbit out of a hat and barely skates out with the title. And Booker stands tall at the end. Triple H looks horrified. I can't believe that he came that close to losing. That's not ideal, but it's better than what we got. Because at least then it looks like Triple H has the reckoning of the things that he said were wrong. He may have won in the end, but Booker T proved that Triple H was wrong about the things he was saying. That could have worked. So Booker T losing isn't even really the issue. It's the way. Triple H hits a pedigree. Yeah, it's about that long before Triple H pins him. We've seen this before. Hit a pedigree, can't make the cover, long pause, crawls over, one hand on top of the guy, 1, 2, and a kick out. Match continues. Not here. 1, 2, 3, Triple H wins. Thus confirming everything he said. It's hard to defend this company, man. It's hard to defend this company. That one, when you look at decisions like that, when you look at decisions like that, you really think where we are now, and you say, it makes sense. Because we've always been here. We were here when Vince was in charge. We're here now. The only difference is we have a president, or with something that's supposed to be a president, that makes it okay. But we've always been here. Easily the most egregious decision in WrestleMania history. There's nothing else. There's no one else. That is it. Why couldn't he kick out? Again, Booker T never recovered. Sure, he had his it wasn't even a main event run. He had a world title run as King Booker, which was hilarious. But why wasn't Booker T, just as Booker T, good enough to be World Heavyweight Champion? He absolutely deserved it. If you go back and watch, he was hot. He was hot as fish grease, just like I've said about all these other people who I mentioned. So I wasn't at the move. Vince does some strange things, man. That was a strange one. That was the strangest. Absolutely the weirdest thing. That sticks so deeply in us. Fast forward to Mania 35, Kofi Mania. Now it's a lot different. Okay, it had some similarities a little bit. They weren't leaning as heavy on the racial aspect of things, but it had some similarities there. And the only difference is you had Daniel Bryan, who was not a Triple H type person or character. And that made it a little bit okay. And I remember me and some friends watched that with like bated breath. And I want to say that the rest of the black community probably had the same feeling and thought. You got one job. Don't fuck this up. And when Kofi won, we cheered. That's one of the few times I remember actively jumping up and like hugging other people. Nigga, we made it. We made it. Because that stain, that trauma of what happened to Booker T at 19 stuck with us. We never forgot. We remember. We remember. I can never forget that. And then what makes it worse now, look, Booker T said some strange, some questionable things. He is definitely in my like faves, one of my faves of all time. But it's a very similar, not as egregious, not as disappointing, but it's almost like Kanye. Booker T makes sure to say the worst takes that he could possibly say. And the way that he bootlicks for WWE now is, again, just disappointing. I love Book. WCW Book. I wish he could have been. I wish he could have continued to be what he was in WCW. Enhanced it character-wise a little bit in WWE. And that been enough. And that just be enough. But we couldn't do that. We didn't do that. History writes itself as it is. Booker T deserved better. Now, we've gotten much better since then. We've had a lot more moments as black people, as black wrestling fans. We've had a lot more moments where we got to enjoy those moments, right? Particularly in WWE. Again, there was Kofi Mania. Big E won the title. Bobby Lashley winning the title. Mercedes, it never was an issue with women. Because we had like Jacqueline, and I want to say Jazz had the women's championship. So it was never an issue with women. It was usually with the black man. But to even get Mania 37, Mania 37, to get Bianca versus Sasha, epic. If you can see, I took it down. Sasha Bianca artwork, all over this office, or this my studio office. Yeah, that was a moment, and getting those is amazing. And even Swerve felt a little bit like Kofi Mania, but better because maybe not better. Kofi Mania was different because of the Booker T thing and because of the title that he won. Make that a thing as well. This is the WWE, the main title at that point. Well, I wouldn't say the main title, but the lineage title, right? So for him to win was a huge, huge, huge thing, and it's only gotten better. Now, ask me what WWE is doing for black men these days. That's a podcast for another day. So we're going to end it right here. Thanks for tuning in again. Talmbout Wrestling. We're 3 weeks in, and I am loving the growth that we're making. So again, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. You know what to do. Again, make sure you tune in for all of our content. Manifesto Mondays, What's Up Wednesdays, and of course, Talking About Wrestling right here on Saturday morning. Well, Saturdays, I don't want to say Saturday mornings because kind of iffy. But you guys are a pleasure. Like I said, the more people we get here, I'm telling you, we're marching towards a goal. The more people we get, I need to set a number to really lock that in. But the more people we get here on the show, the more viewers we get, the more subscribers we get, then we're going to go live with this thing, man. Maybe not with these countdowns because that doesn't feel like a format that'll work in a live stream. But who knows? So, thank you again. Tune in to all our content here on the Black Phoenix Network. Once again, I am your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this has been Talking About Wrestling here on the Black Phoenix Network, your primary destination for wrestling conversation. Until next time, we are out.